Hi, welcome to 30 Minutes with HR. I am your host, Rita Kusi. 30 Minutes with HR is your premier human resource show for employers and employees. It is a partnership program between KUSI Consulting and the Association of African Universities. As always, we have an interesting and engaging topic to discuss. Today we are talking wage and salary administration with, I can't tell you yet, but he is certainly one of the most seasoned HR professionals here in Ghana. And when we come back, you will meet our special guest. So stay tuned.
Treat yourself to a serene, plush, and unique experience. Check in at the AH Hotel, East Legon, where every stay is unique.
Everybody wants to be the best at what they do for the people they're doing it for. That's why, after 13 years of providing you with top-notch healthcare nationwide, the market leader in the private health insurance industry is going the extra mile for you. Instead of hopping from pharmacy to pharmacy, now you get your prescription drugs delivered straight to your doorstep. We will restock your chronic medication on the regular, so you don't have to stress to keep track. We provide on-site clinics that offers you professional medical consultation from the comfort of your office. Enjoy these amazing benefits and so much more by signing on to Nationwide Medical Insurance today. Call us on 0800-222-222 or email us at info@nationwidemh.com. Nationwide, we go the extra mile so you don't have to. Join the healthcare family.
Welcome back to 30 Minutes with HR, and thank you for joining us today. We are discussing wage and salary administration with none other than Dr. Kwapong. Hello, Dr. Kwapong.
Hello, Rita.
Welcome to our set.
Thank you.
So, I'm sure you know this name, especially if you are in the HR profession. Dr. Kwapong is the president of IHRMP, and he's also the CEO of Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. So who better to talk about this topic than him? So Dr. Kwapong, let's get right into it.
Right.
What are we talking about when we mention wage and salary administration? What exactly are we referencing?
Well, essentially, in the HR management cycle or value chain, it is the third, which is reward management. Whoever offers his services to an employer or an investor expects to be rewarded at the end of the day. And the process is involved in determination of the level of reward and the manner in which it's administered is what we call wage and salary administration. Remember that wages relate to daily rated persons at the workplace, and salaries are the more permanent employees who are placed on a regular salary monthly or periodically.
Okay.
But essentially, we need to understand that when we talk wage, it's more of a daily rated arrangement, and when we talk salary, it's a monthly kind of arrangement with other benefits associated with it.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So you're more in the public sector.
Yes.
Is there a difference between how employers administer wages in the public and in the private sector?
No, essentially, when it comes to salary administration, I guess the important thing is to be able to evaluate the job. So we call it job evaluation. And it doesn't matter whether you are in the public sector or the private sector, you evaluate the job. And that is to say that you subject all identifiable jobs to a rating process, what we call the evaluation. So here we have compensable factors that are listed, and every job is rated against those compensable factors. The value determined, and then that forms the basis of ranking all jobs in the organization, and then coming up with grading structure, a salary structure on the basis of which we pay. Yes, but if you are a wage earner, then you are paid daily. At the close of day, you are paid, and so that is more of like negotiation between the employer and the employee, how much is willing to pay. But in all this, whether you are earning a wage or a salary will depend on a certain amount of negotiation between the two. Yes, and when it's agreed, then it becomes contractual, and therefore periodically, based on the terms of the contract of employment, you are paid either daily or monthly. Yes. Together with other perks and benefits. Yes.
I mean, we so last year, KUSI Consulting, we actually ended up doing we did a salary structure and pay grade document for one of our clients, and it's probably one of the most, I wouldn't call it tedious, I would call it's so elaborate, right? Because you cannot afford to mess up. Salary or paying wages, salary and compensation remains number one.
That's right.
I think for all employees, that's probably the most important to them when they're working at a job, and obviously for good reason, because how do you make a living for yourself if you're not being compensated? So I think it's such an important topic that you and I are discussing. So what you mentioned factors. So what factors should be considered if an employer is determining maybe adopting a compensation structure within the organization? Because I know a lot of companies actually don't do that.
Yes, we have 4 generic factors when it comes to job evaluation. That is the skill factor, and that is when we refer to skill, is the knowledge and the experience that you have acquired over the years. The two come together to form the skill factor in evaluating any job that you can think of. Thereafter, you also have the accountability factor in terms of decision making, say signing authority, responsibility for a workforce. I mean, the large number of people that are accountable to you, that you supervise and ensure that you realize the results or meet the targets that you have set for yourself. So that is the accountability factor. Then we have the effort, mental effort and physical effort, the amount of thinking and reasoning you put into the job in arriving at decisions and giving directions or directives to your subordinates. That is the mental bit. And then there is also the physical, walking up and down, and it varies from job to job. In some jobs, the physical effort is so much. In others, it's more of mental effort.
Like construction.
And then like construction, mining, and the like. And then the last one is the work environment. I sit in an air-conditioned environment. Somebody is also exposed to
the hazard.
The elements of the weather, the sun, the wind, the dust, and everything else. So these are the 4 generic factors. And depending upon the organization for which you are designing the job evaluation, there could be sub-factors. The current one has about 13 factors in all revolving around these 4 generic factors that you find in any job evaluation system. Yes. And we are using the point factor system as against the Hay system or the job classification system or the simple ranking system. All right. The easiest is the simple ranking of jobs in small organizations, the most important down to the list. Then we have the job classification, and then we have the point factor system, which is very flexible. You design it based on the circumstances of the company. And then the Hay factor, which is protected because it's for a group of consultants, and it's patented, so you cannot easily change, the system.
You can't change it.
Yeah. So these are the 4 types of job evaluation mechanisms which we apply wherever to assess the value of a job. And at the end of every job evaluation exercise, there should be a rank order.
Okay.
Then you put them into bands, depending upon the scores. So band A, band B, or 1, 2, up to 10, 15. And then when you have done the grading, you go out there and find out how much the employer can pay, the minimum, the maximum. Then you superimpose this on the grading structure, all right? And so then you string all the jobs along that hierarchy so that every job finds its level in the organization. And that's what job evaluation is about for purposes of salary administration. And it's a scientific basis. That way, there's a leveler. Every job is subjected to that same mechanism, so nobody feels cheated. And you are rewarded based on the scores of the job that you are holding. Okay.
So how important is it to also factor in perhaps like industry practice, what others in your industry are doing?
Sure.
Or, I mean, what if your resource strength can't do as much as the other organizations, and then how do you...
Let me also fill in this gap, that at the end of job evaluation, you cannot just rely on that to design salary structure and then leave it at that. There are other factors we take into account. The job market per se. So you go in there to establish relativities with similar jobs in the industry, in the country, all right? So you do a bit of survey and establish relativities. But because it's a matter of reward, people get a bit emotional. And therefore, even within, you need to do establish some relativities and get a buy-in from the stakeholders, organized labor, the unions in the company, management, and other opinion leaders as to how valid the relativity established by the rating scores is fair and applicable to all. Then you go to outside relativity. How do you compare to your competitors within the industry? So you do that relativity as well. So at the end of the day, you do some adjustments to the raw scores just to satisfy internal and external relativities and parities, and ensure that everybody is flowing with you in terms of the structure that you have established for reward purposes. Yes. And so once you have established the structure year after year, for reasons of inflation, for reasons of technological changes, for reasons of expectations of workers, you go out to do a salary survey. And on the basis of the survey, then you come and adjust and improve the levels as the case may be. Yes.
So the whole idea obviously is you want to create a compensation structure that's competitive, is equitable, and is also transparent, right? Because I think it's really important for organizations to put this system in place so that if employees ever have any question as to, example, why new hires making relatively more than they are, you have a way to justify that reason. So what are some ways to keep up to date with salary demands? How like what's going on? How do employers keep up to date with the changes that are happening?
Well, reward constitutes an aspect of costs, staff costs. And at the end of the day, you are looking at how much you are realizing from your efforts, the profits, how much you are prepared to give as dividends to the investors and to the employers and even to community. These days, you know that we have corporate social responsibility featuring very high on the expectations of all stakeholders. So how much are you prepared to give to your investors, the dividends? How much are you prepared to give to your workers, those who offer their sweat for you to achieve your targets? And then the community in which we operate. So it's a bit of a complex equation where at the end of the day you have to satisfy the expectations of all. The workers are particularly important because they actually make things happen. Yes. And when it comes to matters of reward, then you can always call to mind the theories of motivation. The famous age-old Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from the lowest level, the lowest order of needs. What keeps body and soul together? The salary is very important there. But then you also realize that as people grow and progress through the ranks in the organization, salary ceases to be the most important attraction. Now they are talking of safety, security, of tenure,
professional development. Yes.
Then they are also looking at the self-esteem, you know, self-regard, self-esteem, and then we are looking at self-actualization and all these things, and even intellectual challenge these days at the workplace. And all these require setting aside budgets to develop people, to reward them, to give them the recognition they require in the organization. And in doing all these, then, you have to apportion the budgets accordingly. But I believe the bottom line is the profit that you declare at the end of the day to be able to pay, to give some return on the investment of the investor.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So yes, you need to meet several expectations, and salary administration or the reward is an important component.
Exactly.
And in this part of the world, money matters. Money is the number one above all,
Yeah.
and then others will
in
follow.
all parts of the world, actually.
Well.
No?
If you go to certain countries where you have good social, you have pension schemes that take care of your needs in times of crisis, and there is a minimum salary or a minimum living wage that they give.
Botswana, I'm not sure, but I've heard Botswana pretty.
Yes. So some countries make sure that at least the basic needs of of a citizen is met, and so when that is done, then you don't worry too much.
Exactly.
And then if there are good mortgage systems, for instance, you know that at the end of the day you can buy a house, pay the mortgage over a period of time, so that when you go on retirement there is a roof over your head. In other areas where we don't have, then everybody is struggling to invest as much of his earnings in shelter, in accommodation and all that. So yes, it depending upon the extent to which the employer is prepared to reward and motivate and retain the employee, the budget may go up or down. But while investors came here in the past with a view to maximizing profit, the profit motive was so high to the extent that they will squeeze, every sweat out of the employee and pay him very little.
Yes.
Yes. So it depends.
And you see that a lot, I think, in our part of the world,
That's
right? And
right.
I think it has to do with our high unemployment rate.
Yeah, so we are ready to accept any job at all for any wage or salary at all.
Exactly.
But with time, I think we will get wiser. We will reshape our expectations and ask for more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, because in a lot of cases, employees do deserve more, but I think so when we do interviews, when we ask job seekers at the interview their salary recommendation, they usually shy away from it.
Absolutely.
Or they don't want to answer. Some people actually think it's offensive to ask, and I think no, it's not. But you have to do your research too as a job seeker, right?
Sure,
to know
absolutely.
what that role actually
the fear is that if you ask for something too high, you will not be selected for the job. So you play it safe by saying that, oh, well, you have your own structure. Fit me where you think I fit, and that is it. But I think we need, as HR practitioners, we need to encourage job seekers to realize that they are out there in the market selling their expertise, selling their skills, and therefore they should be rewarded accordingly, and they should know their worth on the labor market even before they go for an interview.
Exactly.
And they should do research and be able to determine how much the company is likely to pay them. And if they have a higher expectation, then they mention it at the interview.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you. So now we're moving on to something that I'm particularly interested to hear. You just got back from the International Labour Standards Conference.
International Labour Organization, the annual conference, the ILC,
yes.
International Labour Conference in Geneva, yes.
How was that? Like, I definitely want to hear a bit about what took place, what's happening on the international front, certain things that maybe we can adapt here when administering wage and salaries.
Well, the International Labour Organization invariably works with all countries to ensure that the standards of labor practices are standardized across the world. And in this regard, they have tried over the years to establish a tripartite arrangement amongst organized labor, government, and employers. So we call them the social partners.
Okay.
They meet at such conferences, and then they present country cases with respect to specific conventions that Ghana has adopted.
Okay.
So, for instance, if on the matter of, say, maternity, we have a certain minimum number of weeks or months for maternity, there is a committee of experts that will have come to Ghana to examine the situation, and then a report is submitted. And if it falls short, then you are asked questions as to why you are falling short,
Wow.
and they tell you what to do to be able to come up to speed. And so, in the area of collective bargaining, of, for instance, freedom of association,
Okay.
how is it practiced in Ghana? Is it freely done? And do we have laws that reinforce the requirements of the International Labour Conventions? And so these are the things that we look at. And you know, the only constant in life is change.
Exactly.
So these standards keep changing, and so they keep revising and drawing attention to countries to try and come up to the standards that have been established, particularly when you have signed on to a particular convention. There are several conventions. Equal pay for work of equal value, for instance, was of interest to them to the extent that in our case, we have it in the Constitution, we also have it in the Labour Act.
Okay.
But the concern was whether there was discrimination between genders. Equal pay for work of equal value, yes. But if a job is considered as typically female, the job holders are female,
Okay.
do they pay them the same when a male occupies that kind of position?
Okay.
So these are some of the issues that will come up. Child labor, they will examine and see the extent to which we are applying the rules, you know. And we have the Children's Act here, we have the Labour Act, we have so many laws that, as it were, take their root at times from these international conventions, labor conventions.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
So I have more to ask regarding the convention, but when we come back, we're taking a quick break. If you are watching, I'm sure you're getting so much knowledge, whether you are an employer or whether you are an employee, concerning salary administration. So we'll be right back.
Welcome to Adansi Travels Product Knowledge Series. And I'm excited to talk to you about our FIT tour service, where you get the opportunity to customize the products to your taste. And with that, we take your details, your destination you want to go, the date you want to travel. We're able to do it to suit your budget. So you don't need to worry about breaking the bank when you are traveling with this kind of service. You can visit us as the details are on the screen as you see, or you can call us on the numbers showing on the screen. Let's plan your trip for you, and you know with Adansi, we always let you feel the beauty of life.
Adansi Travel feels life's beauty.
Welcome back to 30 Minutes with HR. We are having a great conversation with Dr. Kwapong. And before we went on break, he was actually sharing a bit from his recent conference, the labor conference in Geneva. I was actually asking him during the break, and he mentioned that he was part of a committee. He was assigned to a committee. And can you share a bit about exactly what the committee was intended to do during the conference?
Yeah, my committee was the Committee for the Application of Labor Standards.
Okay.
And prior to the conference, queries, as it were, had been raised about the extent to which we are enforcing some of the conventions that Ghana has adopted and signed on to. We had answered all questions in the area of tripartism, I mean the social partners, the freedom of association, the ability to negotiate wages and salaries and all. So that was quite interesting. The one perception that seemed to be carried by the committee of experts was that the use of child labor in our production processes was still prevalent.
Okay.
And we are saying that in the strict sense of child labor, we are not using children in the production process. But if your father is a cocoa farmer and he's going to the farm and you accompany him to the farm, you are not working to receive wages,
yes.
but they don't seem to understand
Yes.
that. If your father is a fisherman and he places his canoe on a water body fishing and you join him, he will not pay you at the end of the day. You are only assisting as a matter of chores that children perform.
Yes.
But from their perspective, they think we are exploiting children, so they wanted us to do more in the area of eliminating child labor from all production processes. It's a matter of definition, the perception. It's not a reality, you know. So that was the one area that we were put on the spot.
Okay.
Yes. But otherwise, we passed the test in all the areas.
I find that interesting. It's not the first time that I've heard that with regards to child labor, because in the U.S., kids get paid for chores that they do on a weekly basis. It's not written down. It's not like any legal documents.
Right.
You know, they're not receiving a salary, but you are rewarding the child for something that they do around the house. So I find that actually
strange. Unless you are saying that when you pay my school fees, it's a form of reward for my effort on the farm, but that is not the case.
Wow.
Whether I'm in school or not, I accompany you to the farm, I come back, you know, whatever there is to share, we share, and it's not considered a salary or a wage at all. So that's where we are, and perhaps we need to provide enough information to explain why kids accompany their parents to the farm, fishing and things like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Extracurricular activities.
Yes.
So I'm kind of curious to know, and I'm sure our viewers are too, what's in store for IHRMP and also Fair Wages and Salaries Commission? What can we look forward to in the coming weeks, years?
Well, in the area of Institute of Human Resource Management Practitioners Ghana, we are fighting hard to get our bill passed into law so that we become a chartered institute. Wow. And when we become chartered, then we will have the power, the legal backing to enforce the standard of practice of human resource in this country, to the extent that if a practitioner misconducts himself, then we can bring him to book, we can sanction him.
Okay.
Our ethics committee can invite him over, summon him to come and explain. And if you are not satisfied, we can suspend him from practicing HR in this country. We also insist that every practitioner is registered with us and he's given a certificate. Then he's a chartered practitioner. That way, the practice will be more uniform across industry, and people will come to appreciate that there is a body that regulates the practice of HR in this country and ensures the standard of practice is acceptable internationally.
Exactly.
So that is what we have in stock, and that is what we are praying for. Our bill has gone through cabinet and has gone through parliament, the first stage of it. We are waiting the second stage, and hopefully when it's passed, then we become a chartered institute.
I am more than confident that that's going to happen.
Sure.
I mean, I've been following for a while the organization, the work that you're doing, and I think right now there's so much attention. The spotlight is on HR, so I am more than confident that would happen.
And we also want to kind of advise employers to make the IHRMP certification a requirement for recruitment into certain positions in their organizations, particularly the HR positions at a certain strategic level. You should have a minimum of our certification. You should be a chartered HR practitioner. Otherwise, we have too many charlatans walking over claiming to be HR practitioners and who are not delivering.
Exactly. Definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
And is anything happening with fair wages that we should?
Fair wages, yes. We've gone past the migration of public service institutions onto the single spine. We have also gone past a situation where a platform has been created for negotiations, what we call the Public Services Joint Standing Negotiating Committee, which negotiates for all public service institutions. By that arrangement, we've been able to harmonize all allowances. We call them categories 1, 2, 3, and 4 allowances. So there is a certain sense of parity, fairness, equity in salary administration. However, job evaluation is not an exact science. And so after the initial job evaluation in 2007, 2008, and the eventual migration beginning 2010, a few occupational groups and job holders have come back to say that they were not properly rated. And so then they petition, they lodge complaints with us, and we reevaluate their jobs, and we regrade and place them appropriately. So that's the one area that we are getting a lot of requests for review, and we are ready and prepared to do that for them to ensure equity and fairness. We also see that our law, which gives us the power to manage the public service pay administration, at times runs into conflict with other enabling acts of institutions in the country. For instance, if the enabling act of a particular institution says that the terms and conditions of your employment will be determined by the governing board or governing council, and we are also coming in as Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, invoking the provisions of our act to determine your terms and conditions, then there is obviously a conflict. Okay. And when there's a conflict between two laws, which one prevails over the other? Exactly. So these are some of the areas that we are trying to go back to stakeholders to get them to agree to perhaps amend aspects of our law to strengthen us to be the one and only organization or commission managing public service wages. So yes, we are interested, and the idea of Independent Emoluments Commission has come up. We submitted a cabinet memo way back in 2016. We are reviving that to ensure that going forward we'll be given all the powers we need to be able to manage public service pay administration in this country.
Sounds to me like
from the lowest placed employee to the highest. And that way it will not just be public service institutions, but all public sector institutions, so that we can ensure fairness and equity, parity in the salary administration.
Okay. How about private sector though? Do you keep in mind what also happens there? Because I mean, I know there are two different sectors, but I feel like there are some areas that we also...
Our domain is the public service.
Okay.
But like I said earlier on, when we are managing public service salaries, we also keep an eye on what is happening in the private sector, or to be able to kind of do comparisons, draw conclusions, do analysis, and see how to bridge the gap between the public and the private sector.
Yeah, I think
otherwise, everybody will be shifting to the private sector if salary levels are more competitive there. And that will weaken the central government machinery, the public service administration.
Yeah, that's why I asked that question, because there has to be a balance somewhere. I think the laws have to align in some place. Well, it sounds like you're definitely keeping busy, and there's a lot on your plate.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to look forward to. So I am actually excited for what you're doing. I think with IHRMP, as well as with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. So I'm confident that a lot of positive change will come out of it with respect to human resource. So unfortunately, it is that time. We are coming to the end of 30 Minutes with HR. And is there anything else that you would like to share with the viewers, where they can reach you? If there are any available jobs at IHRMP or at Fair Wages and Salaries Commission?
We have relocated from Labadi to a location behind the trade fair.
Okay.
And we have put up our own building, and we are operating from our own building. We are no longer renting, and we have enough space. So we expect that a lot more people will enroll, a lot more HR practitioners or individuals claiming to be HR practitioners will register with us, and collaborate with us in pushing forward the agenda. We are also mindful of the fact that a lot of employers think that HR is the HR function is a dumping ground. And so when we are not doing too well in a department and they don't want to sack you and they don't know what to do with you, they dump you in HR. So the time has come for them to realize that HR is an exclusive area of people management, and that people who are sent into HR should have the requisite training to be able to deliver. And the nation should realize that the most precious resource of any institution is the human resource.
Yes.
And so attention must be given to human resource. Sufficient budget must be given to human resource in their annual budget preparation, so we can continue to train and retrain, skill and upskill, so that we can deliver to the standard of international HR practice.
Very nice. I certainly agree with you. So how can they get in touch with you if someone is looking to get in touch with?
Yeah, but lest I forget, we also have a database of jobs available in the country, and we also have job seekers. So we are trying to marry the two on our platform. I'm sorry I don't have the new address offhand, but you can always reach us on IHRMP Ghana website, and then we'll take it from there. We are ever ready to talk to you, collaborate with you, organize breakfast meetings, chief executive meetings, so you can explain the role of HR in management, basically. So,
Dr. Kwapong, thank you so much, first of all, for inviting us to your office. It's been a pleasure coming in and meeting and obviously speaking with you. So thank you so much. Thank you, viewers, as always, for tuning in. I hope you got so much information from this conversation that you can use to your advantage. I would like to thank our sponsors, Hotel. I would love to thank Nationwide Medical Insurance and also Adanse Travels. They actually got us here today. And also there's a fabulous young lady by the name of Jessica JQ Nails who actually ended up doing my makeup today. So thank you very much. And again, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. We'll see you next week.